Evening. It's time for another Drive Time Dialectic, and I am TC, founder, originator, host, showrunner, still show producer of the Minnesota Black Robe Regiment podcast, or MBRR Pod, if you prefer to abbreviate everything in the world. So if you're just tuning in or you're not a regular, make sure you are subscribed to the channel. If you are not subscribed to that channel, make sure that you do that now and hit the bell icon so that you're getting notifications, because my content is worth watching. Because I tell the truth, and I'm also not afraid to admit when I'm wrong, and I am wrong. It does happen. I'm not gonna make up a story and tell you I'm never wrong, but I am not afraid to admit when I'm wrong. And unfortunately, I'm here to tell you today that once again I'm sadly right. But before we get to any more of that, share this out. Hit the like button if you haven't done that yet, and tell your friends to watch this, and tell them to watch all the other videos in this series. They're pretty tight, back to back to back. You should be able to find them pretty easy. And then go over to that little join tab that you see there and pick a level of membership and join the channel. And the reason that I say that is because it's not cheap to do this, even though I, use inexpensive equipment like my cell phone and my stuff at home, which I've all been show supporters have donated a massive amount of stuff to me. Hey, Jugs, thanks for tuning in. And yes, fellow patriots, if you're in the chat, please say hi. We are here to interact. But I could always use more channel members for support, and I'm still looking for that show producer. Still looking for the show producer. That top level tier gives you show producer credits, and your name will be shown in my video in the credits, and you will get a shout out as a show producer anytime I do a live or a recorded video. Not so much for shorts. Thank you, Sarah. Sarah says your integrity is why you have our support. It takes a true man to admit to being wrong. I was actually having a conversation with a friend today about this as we were talking about the story I'm going to be telling, and I said I'm not afraid to admit when I'm wrong, and I did that. I predicted that Kamala Harris was going to pick Shapiro out of Pennsylvania to be a running mate, and I said there's not a chance in hell that she'd pick Walz, and she did. And so I had to sit down. I had to admit I was wrong on that, and then I had to go through and analyze why I was wrong, and then I had to do analysis on why strategically they did pick, and if my analysis of why they picked Walz ends up being wrong, I'll say it. And gee, folks, we are going to go by it appears to be a pretty bad accident. Let's hope to God it's not another state trooper as we go down the highway. I can't tell what it is, but okay, everybody, it's in another lane and it's divided. We don't need looky-loo slowing down and causing more accidents. Good Lord, people. Well, we'll be finding out what caused this accident later today, I'm sure. I'm kind of to the point now, every time I run into an accident, I don't know if you guys can see the traffic or not. Let's see, will it do that? See, yeah, the traffic is backed up pretty good there for you folks, but anyway. So yeah, I may have to go back and do another analysis if I'm wrong about Tim Walz and Kamala Harris. And as everybody knows, this is you are gonna find out here in just a minute, folks. Please, and by the way, share this out. Good Friday evening, Good Friday afternoon for those of you in different time zones, or Good Friday morning or Saturday or whatever it is, or whatever day it is when you're watching this. I do political philosophy, analysis, and commentary, and that means sometimes, hey, AVA, and we got Barry's here and Heidi's here. Oh, goodness gracious. But that's what I do. And that means sometimes I do analysis on the conservative movement, the progressive left movement. I do analysis on political figures. I do analysis on public servants. It just so happens that a lot of my analysis is centered on or around doing commentary on law enforcement, because they are in the public eye in a way that you wouldn't necessarily see an employee at a city hall. And one of the reasons why I focus on law enforcement, just for those of you that are maybe tuning in for the first time or haven't heard me do this, is that law enforcement is incredibly, you can't be incredibly unique. You're either unique or you're not, right? But law enforcement in particular is unique in that, unlike any other public servant, any other employee in the public sector, law enforcement has the authority of the state to kidnap you, forcibly detain you, place you in torture cuffs, remove you from your personal property, remove you from your vehicle, and how should we, say this, ruin life in a way that other people in the public sector can't, in a way that say. The mayor of your town can make your life difficult, but the mayor of your town doesn't have the power and the authority in and of themselves to come to your house and make your life difficult. The mayor is never going to get a search warrant, show up at your house and say, I'm coming in. If the mayor showed up, even with a search warrant by themselves, and tried to force their way into your house, you would have every right in the world to use reasonable force to remove him. But when a representative, an agent of the state, who works in the capacity of being a policy enforcer, and that's what law enforcement is, police are policy enforcers, when they arrive on scene with the full weight of the state, armed to the teeth with body armor and armored vehicles, and yes, this is a worst case scenario, but this is very applicable to the people of Kandiyohi County right now. When they show up, and you enter into a resistance with them, they have the authority of the state to end you and not face any repercussions for that. Whether it's justified or not, they have the authority to end you. And that is what in particular makes law enforcement, in my eyes, a particular target for analysis, commentary, and philosophical retribution. And over the last few weeks, I have been covering not just the story of Trooper Shane Roper, but in particular, I have also been covering the story of Deputy Chris Flatten, former Officer Chris Flatten, and Deputy Flatten worked for Kandiyohi and then previously worked for the Wilmer Police Department. AVA, what'd you say? Hey, TC, thank you for leading me to research for myself. I am truly becoming an anti-war fellow. Oh, wow. I'm getting more and more sick of this game our leaders play with our service members' lives. Yes, absolutely. Amen, AVA, for that. What if the IRS is the one having the road pirates steal from citizens? Yeah, that's actually a really good point, that the IRS has armed agents, but they still rely on local law enforcement to take you into custody for not paying your taxes. And that's the thing, it's always an armed agent of the state that they rely on. And the reason why I say this is in particular very important to the people of Kandiyohi County is because of covering the story that I have been covering about Chris Flatten. Not only did I uncover or cover his story about his accident, which I told you on Monday was with 98% certainty is related to driving while under the influence of alcohol. I told you this on Monday, and remember, it's Friday now, folks. I told you on Monday that we were certain that this, and when I say we, I'm talking about the people who are doing my legwork for me, my boots on the ground individuals over in Kendi Ojai, because I just can't be there. I cannot be there. I can't be trying to talk to people over there because I'm nowhere near there. And I've got people that are doing it for me. And so we were certain, and I would say with 98% certainty, that he was drinking and driving. But me covering his accident from July 18th opened the door for me to also find out about what he did to Derek Gilbert back in 2022. And then not only did it open the door for that, it opened the door for me to find out the names of the 6 other cops that were involved in him and his abuse of Derek Gilbert. And then not only did it open the door for me to find out about Derek Gilbert and the names of the 6 other cops who no one has talked about, and I mentioned all of them in the video that I did last night, in the stream that we had last night, I also then was able to now have contact with no less than 3 other people from Kendi Ojai County who have all suffered at the hands of out-of-control law enforcement, out-of-control armed and badged agents of the state who are abusing their power. And every single one of them has the receipts to show that what they're claiming is true. And I have told them all, I don't take everybody at face value. I ask questions. I ask questions of all of them, and they'll all attest to that. There's not one of them that I haven't said, hey, what's going on here? What's the truth? What's the motivation? What do you have? Is there a personal thing here? And I'm paraphrasing all the different questions that I've asked. And so far, the people that I've talked to have been able to show, and in one case in particular, and I mentioned one last night, and this is a different one. In one case, a warrantless search was conducted, a warrantless raid was conducted over a personal amount of marijuana, and a firearm was pointed in the face of an innocent subject who had nothing to do with the situation. And the entire case ended up being thrown out as fruit from the poisonous tree because there was no warrant for them to enter the house. There was no exigent circumstance. And that's what people have to understand. We have got to wake the fuck up. Sorry, I'm not happy to have been right about Deputy Flatten. I'm not. I'm not happy about it. Everybody's like, you get so excited when you're right. I'm like, no, I'm not excited or happy about being right. I'm not shocked that I'm right. And I'm not disappointed that I'm right, but I'm not happy about it. Because we should be able to rely on law enforcement. Law enforcement is a necessity in an evil time. Right? Hear me out. Law enforcement, we use the phrase, this thing is a necessary evil, right? We hear that constantly. Oh, this is a necessary evil. No, law enforcement officers are a necessity in an evil time. And in particular, in Minnesota, law enforcement is a necessary tool for we the people because they are stripping us of our legitimate natural rights that are not granted to us by any government. The Constitution doesn't grant us our rights, any of that. we have is a natural right to self-defense, not just from a tyrannical government, but from individuals who would do us harm. And in the state of Minnesota, they have stripped that, unconstitutionally stripped that right away from us. So now we are in a position where we have to rely on law enforcement to solve crimes that are committed against our persons and our property and our things, our persons, papers, and effects, those things which they have to have a warrant to come and take our persons, our property, and our effects, our papers. They have to have a warrant to take those, but we also now have to rely on them to protect us from others who would not care about a warrant. So when you have cops who are willing to violate your constitutional rights, your natural rights, and not get the warrant that they are required to get outside of exigent circumstances, then they are no better than the criminals that we have to trust them to protect us against or from. In fact, they have become the criminals that we should be scared of. And I got a former cop in the chat right now, Barry. Any news on the street will back me up 100% on that. Barry, if I'm right, that cops who violate our constitutionally enshrined rights and break into our homes to seize us, our property, and our effects, are they criminals at that point? Because what would you call anyone else who does such a thing? You would call them a burglar. You would call them a thief. And if they used violence against you, you would call them an assaulter or a murderer. So when a cop violates the Constitution to do those very things, they are a criminal. And yet they continue to be able to keep their jobs. They continue to be free from the civil penalties that others would have to pay, because they have the authority of the state. They have the authority to come in and do harm to you because they have that badge and that gun, and they have the full power of the money and the oppression of the state, which they have seized from us by force. The cops don't care how many lawsuits are filed. The cops don't care how many times they do those things, because of qualified immunity, they never have to worry about paying the financial remuneration that comes in when they do violate somebody's natural rights as they are constitutionally enshrined. And save for the occasional time you are able to actually file a 18 USC case against them and get them charged for, on a criminal level, for deprivation of rights under the color of law. They face no criminal repercussions for those things as well. And that, my friends, is what has been going on in Kandiyohi County for a very, very, very long time. And because of that willingness, because of that desire to exercise power without any mitigating effect from anyone else, cops become arrogant, they become prideful, they become pampered, and they become coddled. And they begin to do things that maybe they wouldn't have done if they were being held accountable in other areas. And that brings us to Deputy Chris Flatten of the Kandiyohi Sheriff's Office under Tollefson, who hired Chris Flatten away from the discipline that had to have been hanging over his head for what he did to Derek Gilbert 2 years ago. Eric Tollefson, the sheriff of Kandiyohi County, hired Chris Tollefson, who I have now received dozens and dozens of reports about how he treated people. I have received them from numerous sources. Sheriff Eric Tollefson had to know about this. There's no way he didn't know about this. But still, he provided shelter for a tyrannical, criminally minded law enforcement officer, for a policy enforcer. Gave him a home when he fled the Wilmer Police Department. gave him a place where he was comfortable and where he could operate with the people that he knew, people that he was comfortable with, because he knew they would not hold him accountable. And so here we come to July 18th of 2024. And as I said on the day that I found out about this, in the very first video, I told you that he was driving under the influence of alcohol. I told you, you go back to the very first video. You go back to the very first video I did about Chris Flatten and the Candy Ojai Sheriff's Office and the Wilmer Police Department. I told you that his accident was caused by alcohol. I told you that would be the case. And I told you that based on the verbiage that the sheriff put out on the day that he wrecked his car, our car, the taxpayers of the United States, the taxpayers, the wage slaves of the state of Minnesota, I told you that this was going to be the case based on how the sheriff worded it and how the state patrol worded their report, initial report. I predicted that this would be the case. And Eric Tollefson, the sheriff of Candy Ojai County, has yet, as of the start of this video, still has not admitted that his deputy was driving under the influence of alcohol. Still has not made a public statement about whether or not the deputy is out on administrative leave. Still has not put anything up on the social media about it. Oh, they put out all their other stuff. They put up all their propaganda. Look at how fun we are. Look at all the great things we're doing. Look at National Night Out. And look at the picture of this canine. And look at all of this. We see all of these things and we see, hey, help us find this lost individual. And, you know, I pray to God that they find these people. And I pray to God that they stop other crimes. But how about stopping the criminals in your own sheriff's office? How about stopping the criminal behavior of cops in Wilmer? How about stopping the criminal behavior of the gang and violent crimes task force that operates in your county? How about stopping those crimes? How about naming the criminal Christopher Flatten in a report on your social media, Sheriff Tollefson? Where is your accountability? Where do you own this? When do you admit that you knew that this man was a monster, but you hired him anyway? And yet I got people coming at me. Oh, you judge all the cops. I got people telling me that I paint with too broad of a brush. You want to know who paints with the broad brush? You want to know who paints with the broad brush? All of you bootlicking sycophants who, no matter what happens, you say back the blue at all costs. You are the ones that are painting with the broad brush. You're the ones that look at every single cotton-picking cop that you see and you automatically assume heroism on their part and tell anybody who calls them out for their bad behavior, well, you wouldn't have a problem with cops if you weren't a criminal. I've never been charged with a crime. I have never been accused of a crime. And when I talk about crime, I'm not just talking about speeding tickets. I've had speeding tickets. I've had a not wearing a seatbelt ticket. I have never been credibly accused of an actual crime. When my former boss, Sheriff Kevin Torgerson of the Olmsted County Sheriff's Office, was trying to get rid of me for my content, for what I started during the COOF pandemic in 2020. When they came for me, he hired a private attorney, and many of you have heard this ad nauseum, to investigate me for 60 days to the tune of probably $250, $300 an hour for 60 days. And they tried to accuse me of criminal behavior, and they couldn't come up with anything to get rid of me. That went on for almost a full year. And they ended up having to pay a settlement for me to go away because they knew they were going to lose. And I could not stay in an agency working for someone like that. And I had been watching law enforcement right in front of my eyes change its character. And it was getting rapidly worse every day. So when I tell you that Eric Tollefson knew about the behavior of Chris Flatten and hired him anyway, I have no fear of any repercussions. I want Eric Tollefson to come for me and try and stop me. I want Eric Tollefson to threaten me with some sort of litigation. Come for me, Eric Tollefson, because I would love to get my hands on all of your internal documents to find out what you knew and when you flippin' knew it. And I'm going to tell you something else. A cop that will drive drunk on duty that am drunk. So drunk that he was observed not by one, but two different private members of the community. Notice I didn't say civilians, because cops are civilians, and we have to make sure that people understand that distinction between cops and the military. Military personnel are not civilians. Two, cops are civilians in their capacity as public sector employees. They do not hold anything other than a civilian position. So when I say two members of the community in the area in Kandiyohi County observed Deputy Flatten driving erratically and at a high rate of speed, and one of them witnessed the accident happen. That's two people that he could have killed. That's two people he could have slaughtered, like Trooper Shane Roper of the Minnesota State Patrol slaughtered Olivia Flores on May 18th. Do you see why this matters to me? Just like I predicted that, or not predicted, but broke the news that Trooper Roper had prior incidences where he was driving in incredibly irresponsible rates of speed in non-emergent situations with no lights, no sirens, not running code. I was right there, and I was right that his agencies knew about it and that it was not dealt with appropriately. I was right about that. And this is not me bragging. This is me telling you these things, not because look at how smart I am. These are my experiences. This is what I have observed over and over and over and over and over again. It's not every sheriff. It's not every chief of police. It's not every cop. It's not every member of the law enforcement world. There are good ones out there. I know that. I know that they are out there. But I am not going to look at the career field, the institution of policing across the entire United States and say, oh, it's just a few bad apples. It's not. The problem is there are very few good apples left in the career field, in the institution of policing. And they are going to either be pushed out, they're going to be pressed. If we're going to talk about apples, they're going to be pressed until they're smashed and fermenting like cider. I hope you guys can hear me now. I did go through a little area where I lost signal for a second. Put a 1 if everything's coming through streaming okay now. So no, the people who paint with a broad brush are the ones that say that cops are heroes. It's the ones who say that law enforcement as a whole is good. It's the ones who say, you got to back the blue because they're there for you. No, we don't. Cops, and I said this the other day, I approach every cop from a neutral perspective. Every single one of them gets a neutral approach from me. They prove their worth to me when they demonstrate that they are actually one of the good ones, even if it means it's great personal cost to themselves, both financially or for their career, because I sacrificed my career to stand on my principles and my ethics. And that doesn't mean I always did everything perfectly as a deputy in Olmsted County. I did things that I regret. But I will be goddamned if I let anybody tell me that we have to look at all cops and assume they're good. No, because I'll tell you what cops do, by and large. All of their shift briefings, every time they get together at the beginning of their shift, all they hear is, be safe out there. Go make sure you're the one that goes home at the end of the night. Be careful as you approach those cars. Be careful as you approach that door. Be careful when you're in public. Don't sit with your back to a door. Make sure you have your back to the wall. Make sure that you can see all of your exits. Make sure that you know who's carrying and who's not. Watch their actions. Watch their motives. Listen to what they have to say. Be careful when they approach you. Always make sure it's about your safety. And the reason that is because cops are trained. They are conditioned. They are propagandized, not only to see themselves as an extension of the armed forces of the United States, but they are conditioned to look at the American people and see them all as the potential life-ending enemy. Not of the Republic, not of the Constitution, but of the cop and the cop's partners and the agency as a whole. That's what their shift briefings are. Oh, and by the way, go out there and stop a crime or solve a crime if you have time, but make sure you are the one that goes home at the end of your shift. Make sure that you are safe. And so we get to a guy like Deputy Chris Flatten on May 18th, who is so coddled in his bad behavior, who's never been fully held accountable, never had to worry about anything. Never had to worry about whether or not he was going to lose his job because Eric Tollefson, the sheriff of Kandiyohi, was there to swoop in and give him his new position and put him in a squad. And not only was he so comfortable driving drunk, he was so arrogant. He was so comfortable in what he did that when they extricated him from the car at your expense, wage slaves of the United States, wage slaves of the state of Minnesota, wage slaves of Kandiyohi County, not only was he so comfortable in that when they life flighted him to the hospital and the state trooper, who good on him, said there was enough signs of alcohol present in the aroma and the descriptions of his driving that he was able to get a warrant for a blood draw, and not only had Flatten refused to comply, he then refused the warrant as well. Now, you're never obligated to comply with law enforcement when it comes to an investigation into you, even with that implied consent on the back of your driver's license. But I want you to let that sink in. Let it sink in. If you refuse to comply with a cop investigating you, and there are people in this channel right now watching, there are subscribers to my channel, my moderators, there are people who watch my content, who are auditors, who have been victimized by law enforcement. Some of them have become auditors by accident. My good friend Kevin from the Angry Vet channel never intended to become an auditor, but it was the treatment that he received at the hands of law enforcement that made him become become a person who is about accountability for cops. AVA, one of my moderators, has had incredibly bad experiences with law enforcement as a veteran of the United States military, they have treated him like absolute trash. And when you fail to comply, even though the Constitution and the Bill of Rights protects you and does not force you to take part in prosecution or investigation into you, you cannot be compelled to comply with an investigation by law enforcement. You will be arrested and brought in on trumped up charges if you piss off a cop. It's called contempt of cop, is what it's called. That's what we call it, folks. And I actually have heard cops use that terminology when they bring people in. Well, I was going to let him go, but he was being kind of a jackass. You know, that contempt of cop stuff. All these people think they're roadside warriors. They all think that they're lawyers because they've watched some videos on YouTube. They watch some videos and they read some stuff. They all soft sits. That's the other one. Anybody who knows their rights is soft sit. But every single one of those cops knows you don't have to comply with the investigation, and that's exactly what Christopher Flatten did on the night of May 18th when that state trooper showed up to draw his blood and had a warrant for it. Isn't it funny how cops on duty will use every trick in the book to get you to comply? But boy, when it comes down to them being investigated, they know everything they need to say and everything they need to do to not have to comply and have no fear. Now, he is being charged with refusal. He is being charged with fourth-degree DUI. And Heidi, we could talk offline about how the DUI laws work and how it can be a fourth degree versus a first degree and what it takes to have a first degree and all of that. But Christopher Flatten knew what he needed to do, even that inebriated. And so when I say that this tyrant's been brought down by his own arrogance, his own pride, flattened in his arrogance, the greater question now is are we as we the people, are we as Americans, are we as the government, the true government? We're not the state. We're the government. The state should be working for us, but the state has risen above us. The state has become better than us, superior to us. The state has become our Lord at all her levels, and they have oppressed us to the point where we believe they're the government, and they're not. We have one authority over us here on the earth in the United States Republic, and that is the Constitution. The Constitution is the one authority that is superior to all people in the earthly sense here in the United States Republic. And directly under that Constitution is we the people. And then from there, public servants are subservient to us. All of them, whether it be the President of the United States or your mayor, they're all subservient to us. They owe us allegiance. They owe us deference. They owe us respect. They owe us servile mentality. But what we are given every day, no matter where you go, whether it be from the DMV to City Hall to a county courthouse, whether it be to a county board meeting or a city council meeting or a school board meeting or a library board meeting or dealing with the local dog catcher, we are made to believe that they are the authority over us. That's how they act, that they are our superiors and that we are to be subservient to them. And when we don't, then we are the problem. And we're like my friend Nate down in Bellevue, Nebraska, whose fiance, by the way, Nate proposed to Sam on my show live when we were talking about Sam's unlawful arrest at the hands of cops who were ordering her around on her own private property. We found out through reports that they labeled Nate a soft sit because he told the cop, I don't have to listen to you. I'm on my private property and you're conducting a traffic stop in my driveway. So no, stop telling me what to do. Look, folks, this is how this is going to step on some toes. This is how we've ended up in this position, is because we have all become lazy. We have all become entirely too comfortable. Christopher Flatten has been brought down. And I wish it could have been for something even more serious, like the deprivation of people's rights. Like, I wish we could have brought him down for what he did to Derek Gilbert. And I will say it again, this will be the third show in a row. Derek Gilbert is a hero, and the 7 cops who abused Derek Gilbert 2 years ago, they are the criminals, and Derek is the hero. But we have become entirely too comfortable. We have become entirely too possessed of the idea that our safety and our security are more important than anything else, and that the state is there to protect us. And people like Flatten, we just ignore what he does as long as he's not doing it to me. And then we look at Eric Tollefson, the sheriff of Kandiyohi County, and we go, oh, well, that's his deputy's fault. No. Deputy Flatten did what he did. Deputy Flatten was comfortable driving drunk. Deputy Flatten was comfortable saying, no, I won't comply with the test, because he had been made to feel as if the Blue Line gang would circle around him and protect him from the repercussions that were going to come his way for doing what he did. And had no one witnessed the accident, and he made it, or if no one witnessed his driving, or even if he hadn't had the accident and they witnessed his driving, nothing would have happened. I've told the story about a deputy that I worked with named John Bondi in the Olmsted County Sheriff's Office, got drunk during a training meeting on Zoom, got called in to Chief Deputy Brian Howard's office the next day to talk about his drunken behavior during training, and he was drunk when he got there, drove drunk to the meeting, and the Chief Deputy drove him home. So had no one seen an accident, had there not been an accident, but somebody called in his behavior, he would not be facing DUI charges today. The only reason that Deputy Flatten is facing DUI charges today, as of right now, is not because Eric Tollefson is a stand-up sheriff, but because he damn near killed himself and did thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars worth of damage to your property, America. And somebody was there to witness it. And Sheriff Tollefson could not stop the train wreck from happening. And now it's time to make men like Eric Tollefson, Sheriff Eric Tollefson of the Kandiyohi Sheriff's Office, answer the goddamn question. What did you know about him? How many times has this happened in the past? And when did you know it, Sheriff? When did you know about his problem? When did you know how bad he was? Because everybody I've talked to knows how bad he was. And if this is what it takes to stop him from going on and victimizing more people, then thank God it happened. And I would say that even if he had lost his life. Better him than another Olivia Flores. Better him than one more innocent person abused through another warrantless criminal search. But now, Sheriff Tollefson, we're going to get answers. Now, Sheriff Tollefson, we're going to find out what you knew and when you knew it. We're not going away. And I'll be goddamned if I'm the only channel talking about this. I will keep at this until we get answers. But we're going to get answers, Sheriff Tollefson. And if we have to take down every single member of your sheriff's office, if we have to take down every single member of the Wilmer Police Department, we will get answers. Because we know that this is not a one-off. Something stinks in Denmark. That's a Shakespeare reference. I'm sorry. Too heady. And if you're watching and this inspires you to start paying attention to your local law enforcement agencies and that's all you do, good for you. And if you need help, you reach out to me. You let me know, because I already had somebody ask me about checking out stuff in Itasca County. It was basically, you think this is bad, wait till you hear what's going on in Itasca. If you know anyone that wants to talk, send them my way. If you know anyone that has stories to tell, stories to share, send them my way. Bip, I made you a moderator and I will take it away if you don't stop your smart-alecky little comments there. I see you, Bip. I'm done. I'm done. This crap's got to end. And do not, I'm begging you, people in Kaneohe County, don't wash your hands and say, oh, well, he's gone down now, so it's okay, it's good. No, let this be one of many until we get answers from Tollefson. And if Tollefson goes and we can get a good sheriff in there, I can think of one that I know right now that I've been interacting with that I think would be a great option. But if we could take down Tollefson and get a new sheriff elected there that can pass the vetting process, I'll be happy with that. Because a good sheriff will go in and clean house. A good sheriff would not have hired Chris Flatten under the circumstances of the situation at hand. So no, don't tell me that I'm supposed to look at all cops and assume they're all good. No. Best case scenario, you're all neutral. With the assumption that most of them are probably dirty until they prove to me otherwise. And the more that crap like this happens, the more likely it is I'm going to continue to say that. So am I happy that I was right? I'm not happy. But I'm not disappointed. I'm glad that Flatten has been flattened. But I want to unravel the rest of the sweater, of the blanket of corruption that appears to be covering Kaneohe County. Let's free the people. Folks, if you haven't yet, please join memberships. I really need the support. Not going to lie. I know how tight everybody is, and if you can't do it, I'm not going to hold it against you. But if you can do even level 1 and become an act localist, that's why I call what I do acting local activism. I hope it inspires you. And at the very least, tell your friends to watch and join the channel if they like what we're doing. And send a super chat, super thank you. You know, next time you're on for a live, hit me up with a super chat. Especially if you got something really profound that you'd like to say or share, because it makes it easier to see as it scrolls by. Or tell your friends to hit the super thank you after the fact. You can send a super, basically it's a thank you tip to the channel afterwards if you choose not to do the memberships. And if you want to do a membership but you don't want to do it through YouTube, you can check me out, Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, on Subscribestar. I have support levels there as well. So I really appreciate everybody tuning in. We're not done with Kaneohe County just because Flatten's been charged. Because he doesn't go to court until September now. Think about that. If that were me, I would have been taken in and arraigned the second they released me from the hospital, more than likely. You want to know why I know that? Because I saw it happen hundreds of times. Hundreds of times. In a near 13-year career. Hundreds of times. But Trooper Shane Roper can go almost 2 months before he has to show up for court the first time. I don't have a PayPal. They won't let me join PayPal. I don't have a Venmo. All I have is Zelle and Subscribestar. so, yeah. Cops get special treatment that you and I would never get. I'm not upset that I gave up my career, but things haven't been easy. Barry, if you wanted to Zelle, you could Zelle me, but I don't. You can Zelle me through my phone number. But I've lost a lot. I've got family that won't talk to me because of what I do now. So, a brother who's been in law enforcement for over 20 years. How do we get rid of school resource officers? They're cops, so I'd have to know. AVA, send me an email, mbrrpodcast@yahoo.com. Let's talk. Let's see if there's a story there. Subscribestar Minnesota Black Robe Regiment. Join the channel here. Looking, like I said, I'm still looking for that show producer credits for that monthly membership. Whoever wants to step up to the show producer credits, I will gladly promote your channel and give you show producer credits in my live streams and in my recorded videos. And I'm gonna try and go enjoy my weekend. I've got a really big show coming tomorrow with my friend Becky, and we're going to be talking about a very potentially dangerous Senate candidate here in Minnesota, and it's a very important story actually for everybody because it's if he gets elected as a Republican, he'll be going to the Senate, and we don't need people like this guy in the Senate. So if you're interested, tune in tomorrow. We'll be talking about Royce White and what we're finding out about him and our suspicions about him. And I'm going to be working on a couple of shorts to put out over the next couple of days. And then I got to mow my yard and move firewood and all that stuff, and a little bit of a personal family celebration that I get to celebrate something that's very, very important to me that took place last night in the evening. So I really appreciate everybody tuning in. And I can't thank you guys enough for watching. Please, I'm begging you, as many places as you can share this, as many platforms as you can share this. I do not want the Candy Ojai Sheriff's Office to, or especially Sheriff Tollefson, to think that they've escaped the bright light of scrutiny. We're going to drag the infection that is the corruption in Candy Ojai County and everywhere else that we can find it. We're going to drag it into the light, kicking and screaming until it dies. That's what I want all of us to be motivated to do. Drag it into the light until it dies. So my friends, I love my fans. I really do. You guys have no idea how much I appreciate you. Fight for your freedom, it is yours. Fight for your liberty, it belongs to you. And Sic Semper, Tyrantus.